Okay, so this is going to be some constructive criticism for those in the Christian community. But for those who are not in the Christian community, I do want to say I need you. And here's why. The first reason that Christian content tends to suck is that Christians don't make content for a wider audience. Christians tend to make content for a Christian audience. And that's very easy and it's very safe. It's like it's easy to be a cheerleader for the home team. It's easy to inspire people who are predisposed to be inspired by what you are talking about. It's not easy. And the real art comes in when you can intrigue and invite those people who don't agree with you into a conversation. I really do hope that that's the purpose of this channel. I mean, that is the purpose, and I hope that I achieve that. So if you're not a Christian believer, I want you to hang in there with this video, even though I am a Christian and I'm kind of talking to a Christian community here, and it's sort of like in-house type of stuff. I don't ever want this channel to be sort of siloed by the algorithm into a place where it's just Christians talking to Christians. That's why I make videos dialoguing with Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson and Russell Brand. I find those people to be interesting. I find those conversations to be more engaging than, honestly, the Christian content that pops up in my YouTube feed, which isn't a lot, to be totally honest with you, because I don't really consume a lot of Christian content because it's not great. It's not that good. And here's what's at stake with this. I think this is really important. In a digital age where we're consuming digital content, we get our information through digital media, the risk is that we as people lose the ability to have dialogue. We risk losing that other person coming into my life who I disagree with, who can help me not get so locked into my own worldview, my one way of seeing the world. So if you're not a believer, I love that you're here. I love that you clicked on this video. I'm not just gonna rant about why I'm gonna kind of rant about why Christian content sucks, but I hope that it's constructive for those who are in the Christian community, and I hope that it's intriguing and maybe illuminating for those who are not. And then I'm inviting all of you for your feedback, because again, I think that's part of the power of digital media, is that we can actually have this dialogue together. So I really hope that we don't lose that ability moving forward. I really do hope that we can create a community here of people who kind of politely disagree with each other. This channel is a place for people who are spiritually curious, theologically curious, the pilgrim on the journey, the person who doesn't have it all figured out. If you have your theology all figured out, I don't know how to help you. I don't know how to engage with you. I think that you've probably done theology incorrectly if you think you have it all figured out. To those who are spiritually curious, to the pilgrim on the journey, welcome. I'm glad you're here. We're going to get into this video right here with Sean Cannell. Maybe what I'm experiencing is what everybody experiences when they go to buy a new car, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to buy a Toyota Tundra. And then you start seeing Toyota Tundras everywhere you go. Maybe that's what I'm experiencing. I just happen to be a Christian, so I'm stumbling over all of this Christian stuff in the internet. But like I said, I don't really consume a lot of Christian content. I'm listening to Joe Rogan and Russell Brand and Jordan Peterson, and it was the Joe Rogan and Adam Curry episode that really pushed me over the edge, when Adam Curry just starts telling his testimony about Jesus. I'm like, okay, something's going on here, man. And so Sean runs Think Media, which is just a digital media company. They give people advice on how to make content, which I think is really good for a digital age. You should be learning how to communicate, even if you're not a Christian. Again, you have a message. You have something meaningful to share. So people like Sean and Think Media are great because they're diving into how can we best communicate to one another in a digital age moving forward. So it has nothing to do with Christianity. So when I saw this podcast pop up, I just thought, here's another one. Sean is a Christian, and he is going to open up about his faith. He's going to like this podcast has 101,000 subscribers. His main channel has more than that. His company is pretty big, so he's taking time out of his day to record a 1 hour podcast on why Christianity is important and a message to Christian content creators, which is kind of what we're doing here, you know. So the fact that he takes time out of his day to record this, I think means that God is up to something. That's my feel, right? Is that sorry, Sean, if you're watching this, I did try to pause it on a good spot there. And with all of these, I'm not gonna give you everything. You can go check out his channel and watch the whole thing. But there's a few points here. He's gonna give you 6 points, and I'm only gonna cover 4 for my purpose here. And so check out his channel. Check out what he's doing over there at Think Media. Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff, particularly for people that want to learn how to communicate an effective message moving forward in a digital age. And I think if you're a Christian, that should be top priority, because as a Christian person, you're like, man, I've got this message that's everybody needs to hear. And yet what are we doing? We're just scrolling on our phones, complaining about how messed up the internet is, you know, and we're not doing anything about it. So anyway, rant over. Here we go.
So right now, I think there's a unique opportunity for Christian content creators when it comes to YouTube and social media. And in this video, I just wanted to actually share just kind of from the heart, as well as get into 6 things I wrote down and a bunch of different Bible verses that I think we need to know as Christians. Now, as you might know, Think Media Podcast, our brand Think Media, we help people with cameras and YouTube, and we have a divergent audience with diverse beliefs and backgrounds and business owners and all kinds of people. But our message definitely resonates with those that would say, you know, I'm a Christian and I've got some, that's my faith personally. And so I really have some powerful things I want to share that I think will be valuable to you. And, you know, if you're not a Christian, then you may not want to watch this video, but you're certainly welcome here as well. So
yeah, so that could serve as an introduction to this video as well. Again, he's talking about how he has a wide audience. He's got in a sense, like a marketing company, and that's awesome. You have a broad appeal. There you go. Win number 1 of why most Christian content creators suck. Sean, so far so good, right? Wide audience. If you're not a Christian, maybe you don't want to watch it. Maybe you don't get a deep level of meaning out of it. But I would say, if you're not a Christian, please engage with this.
You know, Billy Graham said that I believe one of the next great moves of God is going to be through believers in the marketplace. And I think that there's a massive opportunity right now. If you have
yeah, the next great move of God, sorry, I'm in the way there, but is through believers in the marketplace. I want to give you an idea. The first century church was put in a position of the Roman Empire, and begin thinking, and we'll unpack this a little bit more, and then we'll get to the Bible Project, and we'll get to some of those other stuff. So hang in there. Begin thinking about the first century church and how it was plopped into Rome, and how actually being in Rome helped Christians spread their message. And compare that to today. We're going to unpack that. The next great move of God, Billy Graham says, is through believers in the workplace. Not disagreeing with Billy Graham, all due respect, the next great move of God is going to be through believers in a digital space, in a digital communication arena where billions and billions of people are going to places like YouTube to get their information and to find community. So the digital age is the one where I think you're going to see a massive spread. I mean, you're already seeing a massive spread of information, and so you have to kind of cut through some of that, but meaningful dialogue, meaningful information. And again, that's the purpose of this channel, is to be one place where we can have some of that meaningful dialogue.
Message, a business, if you're a Christian business owner, a Christian content creator, kingdom entrepreneur, to really lean in, because there's massive opportunity happening specifically with YouTube and for content creators. And so let's dive into some of the thoughts that I wrote down. But number 1 is we were created to create. God is a creator. And what's fascinating to me is the fifth word in the Bible
Hmm.
is God revealing himself as a creator. It says, in the beginning, God created. How crazy is it that the first thing that God revealed about himself was not that he was loving, was not that he was holy, was not any of these other things, but that he was a creator. And all
Yeah, and so we, being made in the image of God, should also create, but we should also be very aware of what we're creating. Don't be and be intentional about what you're creating, because I know a lot of Christians. This is kind of getting into my second point, but a lot of Christians are like, the internet, it's such a dark, evil place. Well, yeah, like it is, but let's be intentional about how we engage in a world um, that honestly needs people to use your imagination. Like if you're a Christian and you came from a Christian community where it's a bad thing to use your imagination and be creative, then let's push against that a little bit, because we were created to create, because God is a creator and we are meant to be like God.
ultimately being made in the image of God. The Hebrew word for that is bara, and it's to create, to shape, and to form. What we do as content creators is we're making something out of nothing. We're using our phones and cameras. We are telling stories. We're building businesses. I think that now is a massive time. If you've had something stirring in your heart to share, something to put out there in the world, this will be the time to jump in. What are you waiting for? What's holding you back? And by the way, I'm going to be doing Q&A here in a little bit towards the end.
Yeah. So I don't know. And I read some of the comments of this video. There's a lot of people out there feeling called to create content. There's a lot of people out there feeling an urge. And to be completely honest, that's where this channel came from. I have all kinds of stuff that I'm doing, and yet I keep getting this urge to like make these videos. And when I do, I find a lot of joy in making these videos. And when I engage with comments, I find a lot of joy in that. It's like Eric Liddell, the Scottish athlete runner who was a missionary. He says, look, I was made to be a missionary, but God also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure. And if we're created to create, God has given you a message. And if you're keeping that message inside, you probably feel a little uncomfortable. You could probably feel a little unease. And maybe that's where some of the irritation is coming from on the internet. It's like people don't know how to get their message out. So we're just left responding and clapping back and snapping back at other people, when really it's like, man, infuse the internet with your story and life and a meaningful message that you have. Going back to his point about we were created to create, and then we'll get to his second point here in a second, is that unfortunately most evangelical Christians don't think about sharing their faith as an art form. They kind of begrudge this, like, yeah, I guess I got to share my faith with somebody. You don't think about it as an art form or engaging with the mission of God, engaging with how God has made us. And I think that we don't feel life when we do it. When we ignore what God has created us for, we don't feel life. And so we need to think of life coram Deo, life before the face of God, whether you're a carpenter, whether you're an ice cream maker, whether you're a content creator, you do all of this life coram Deo, that I'm serving God in everything that I do, because we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works that he has prepared beforehand that we might walk in them. So this is where we need to be. We need to be in this mindset moving forward, that we are created to create. We can't, unfortunately, and I come from a Reformed tradition. Unfortunately, one of the things that we lost in that Reformation was an appreciation for mystery and art. And I think we need to recapture that as we move forward as content creators, but also as just like business people and gardeners and whatever. Maybe you're a student. Live life coram Deo. Every moment of life was prepared for you by God, for you to do the work that God created for you. So let's go. I hope that's inspiring.
And let's go number 2. We were given a mission from Jesus. The Great Commission says, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I commanded you. As surely I'm with you always to the very end of the age.
We were given a mission from Jesus to spread the gospel far and wide. And this is where Rome comes in. This is where that conversation about Rome starts to get unpacked a little bit. the first century church was placed in a particular time and place or space so that the message of the gospel could go far and wide. And the first century church took advantage of that setting. Yes, Rome persecuted the first century church, but Rome also built the roads that the Christians used to spread the gospel. And today, that mission is still there. We're given a mission by Jesus to spread the gospel far and wide. And today, the road is really more like the internet, more like the network that we call the internet.
So it's like when I think about people in our community, it's like we can have RV channels and DIY channels and artistic channels and business channels and personal finance channels. What's interesting is that's all in there. Jesus taught on all that stuff, right? And so number two is we were given a mission, and I think there's a unique opportunity for Christian content creators to fulfill the mission of Jesus. In some cases, start a Bible study channel. That's amazing. Start a channel for your church. But on the other hand,
yeah, so this is part of the whole Christians making content for other Christians. Like it's okay. Like if God put it on your heart to make a Bible study channel, make a Bible study channel. Love it. Awesome. Wonderful. Amazing. But realize that it's going to appeal to Christians and maybe people who are seeking, depending on how you frame your Bible study. Actually, there could be a really amazing way of framing a Bible study channel that appeals to a broader audience. So it's not even necessarily what you're saying, so to speak, but how you're presenting it that creates that silo and that echo chamber.
And two, we can fulfill the Great Commission partly with YouTube, with social media, right? I think that's a massive opportunity. Let's go to number three. Number three, we are called to be salt and light. Check out this from the Message paraphrase, this verse in Matthew 5:14 through 16. It says this. Here's another way to put it. You're here to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We are going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. If I make you light bearers and you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a light stand. Now that I've put you on a hilltop on a light stand, shine. Keep an open house. Be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you'll prompt people to open up with God, this generous Father in heaven. And I love that. You are here to be light and to bring out the God colors in the world. What would it look like if we were creating content that brought the God colors out in the world? And
yeah, and the question before us is, can we be digital missionaries? Can we have meaningful connection with people through the internet the way you would kind of desire it to be if you're sharing your faith with someone? I think moving forward, the answer is yes. I think there's a generation of people who don't find meaningful connection online, and I get that. There's a generation of people coming up who that is where their community is. Their community is online. So yeah, I get the resistance to social media. There's a lot of bad in social media. But that is where a lot of people are getting their information and making connection. So can we truly display what God is doing in our lives through a digital media? Good question. And then going back to what's at stake. What's at stake is if we don't, we lose the ability to have dialogue. We lose the ability to have meaningful conversation with one another. We just become siloed.
There's an old saying that it's better to light one candle than to curse the darkness. And our conviction kind of at Think Media, I know there's all different expressions of Christianity, is sometimes I get a little uncomfortable though when Christians are just known for what they're against and not for what they're for. When they're just known for maybe picketing in front of places and criticizing things they don't agree with. While maybe you feel called to that.
Yeah. Guys, and this is specific to Christians, and if you're not a non-believer, I'd love to hear your feedback on this as well. But yeah, specifically to Christians, be more creative than that. Don't just be responding to the things that you disagree with. Be more creative. Challenge yourself. And we'll get into this later. We'll look at some of the channels that succeeded, that look like they're succeeding, and ask the question of why. Why are those channels succeeding when maybe some other Christian content channels just aren't connecting with people?
That's between you and God. But I think the big opportunity is rather than curse the darkness, it's better to light one candle. What does that mean? There's a book called Next Christians by Gabe Lyons, and it talks about the way to actually shape culture is not to curse culture, but it's to create more culture.
Yeah, you can look at Leslie Newbegin's book. Also, I'll put a link to Newbegin's book in the comments. The internet is a cesspool. Okay, the internet is a stagnant pond breeding all kinds of negative bacteria and things like that. And you could try to filter that out. You could try to invent a filter. You could be like Mr. Beast in that project where he picked up all the trash in the ocean and stuff like that. And you could try to build a filter big enough to purify the cesspool that is the internet. That's one option. And maybe that is a good option. The other option is to infuse that with fresh water. Infuse the internet with fresh water, like Sean's saying. It's a dark world out there. And again, Christians, you have a meaningful message. You have the gospel. It's the good news that everybody needs to hear, particularly in this day and age where darkness is so prevalent. And maybe we always feel like that, that our present age is the most dark, but man alive. Maybe you're not called to create content, but you can share content. You can find the stuff that's meaningful to you. Like YouTube might be throttling, Christian YouTube channels. We'll talk about that more here in a second. But they're not preventing you from sharing it through a text message. They're not preventing you from putting it on your social media accounts. If you found meaningful content, just text it to your friends. Say, hey, I was listening to this podcast. You might check it out. My brother and I do this all the time. We're texting each other all kinds of like podcasts and videos and stuff like that. And if you have a video that you think I should look at, I would love to get your feedback on that as well. And shameless plug here. I mean, if you find this conversations like this meaningful, take this and share it with somebody, because that's how the message gets out. Again, yes, Rome persecuted the Christians, but they also built the roads. And that's the road right there for sharing the gospel, is taking meaningful content and spreading it so that we're infusing the internet with that fresh water. So we're lighting a candle in that dark place. Okay, rant over. Here we go. Back to Sean.
So if you want to really influence the music industry, it's not to just be like, oh, that music is bad. It's you go make some good music. If you really want to influence the YouTube world or the social media world, go make the best content in the world. Actually light a candle, upload some content that you recognize there's a lot of evil and there's a lot of falsehood and there's a need of truth and there's a need of beauty and there's a need of God's wisdom being brought into the world. That's a pretty good reason to shine bright. So that's a good reason to try to go viral. That's a good reason to try to get subscribers. It's a good reason. And it's literally a command. Like Jesus is like, yo, you need to shine brighter. Yeah, you need to, you're a city on a hill. I'm not trying to hide you. Like you are light bearers, ultimately, not so that we'd have glory for ourselves, but that we could give glory to God, right?
And again, I think this takes us back into the conversation about Christians kind of siloing themselves. It's like, it's easy to be a cheerleader for the home team. It's not easy to go out into the world, shine bright, get a lot of negative feedback, potentially adjust your message so that people can understand your message better. This is what Paul did in Athens. He's like, hey, I see that you guys are really religious. Let's talk about this unknown God. The interesting thing also, and I'll try to find this, but there was somebody who did a post about why most people, what kind of content people are consuming on YouTube. And a lot of it is informative. A lot of people go to YouTube for information, to learn, and to make meaningful connections with other people learning those things. So I actually think like the more we make meaningful content, the more meaningful, the more valuable, the less dark this place will be, I think. All right, we're going to get to the next spot here.
But the cap ultimately on the growth of your channel,
maybe that's for me,
is that your content sucks. I mean, do you see any truly competent workers? They'll serve before kings, not common men. Here's the promise that if content is king, so that when good content is posted to YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, the algorithm promotes it. If you develop competency, we need to scale up.
Yeah. So here's the next point. But again, there are a group of people, and maybe rightly so, like, who would say, okay, YouTube is throttling Christian content. And again, Rome persecuted the church, so we do have no excuse. But listen to the feedback. YouTube provides you so much feedback for you to be able to make adjustments and learn how to present your message in a way that people hear it, that it's meaningful for those people. So I just love, like, hey, maybe the content just sucks. Maybe you just made another one of those cheesy Christian movies that doesn't appeal to a wider audience. Okay, so let me see. I'm going to unpack that here with this next point that Sean's talking about.
If you work on your content, and I want this to be challenging, but also to be encouraging. I think about like Sean, I just discovered you. You're an overnight success. Yeah, overnight success just takes 20 years. It's been a journey. And we're going viral in the last year. We've got a lot of viral Facebook Reels. We've got a lot of viral TikToks. We're going viral right now on YouTube. We just went from 4 million views a month to almost 10 million YouTube Shorts.
Okay, think about that for a second. 10 million people listening to your message. Like, how is this not the most rich opportunity for sharing that there ever has been? I know there's a lot of information out there. I know there's a lot of people making content. I get it. Compare that to a church of like 300 people. If you've got a church of 300 people, it's like, okay, it's a medium-sized church. It's like maybe small, medium, It takes a long time to create a church of that size. But to get 300 people to watch a YouTube short is not hard. And then you realize you can get 10 million people. The message can be spread far and wide. I think that's the point. And today, maybe more so than anywhere. I want to compare today to actually two different points in history. And one of those is Rome. I've talked about that a little bit, but check this out. Think about this. We're going to unpack this. We're talking about salt and light. Rome was vast. It covered the known world at the time. It was the Mediterranean world. And God put the first century church in the midst of Rome. The internet is vast. It is a vast space, more vast than maybe we've ever experienced. So that's the first point. Rome had a common language. The internet allows us to basically have a common language. Now, there is something to be said for the Tower of Babel here. And I'm going to do more content on that because Joe Rogan and Graham Hancock's interview, I'm actually working on one of those right now, or hopefully. So there is a response to Tower of Babel, a common language. The internet gives us the opportunity to speak to people in a way we've never been able to before. Rome had an expansive network of roads. The internet is an expansive network of roads for the quick spread of information. I mean, how quick can we spread some of this information? And there was the Pax Romana, like the Roman peace, the relative peace that Rome had. Relative to the warring clans elsewhere, where if you went from one region to another, you risked being murdered on the streets. There was a relative peace that Rome prepared. And God plopped his church, the first century church, down in the midst of that. That is where the Son of God came. That is where he appeared. He appears in this Roman world where there's a vast, almost universal presence, a common language, an expansive network for sharing information, and a relative peace. Now, there's a lot of chaos going on in the world today, but relatively speaking, there's also a lot of peace and freedom. We need not to forget that. I realize this is getting long, so if you're still with me, thank you. Thank you. This is long form content at this point. I appreciate you being here. We're doing a deep dive. So compare Rome to today. Tell me we're not on to something here. So we're going to segue into some of the channels that I think are successful and learn from those. But we're going to just pause. This is long form content. This is a deep dive. If you've got to go to work, pause this, come back to it. I've provided chapters and descriptions for you all so that this can be meaningful and impactful for you. And thank you for being here at this point because, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of channels out there, and you've chosen to spend your time with me, and I absolutely love it. I mean, I really do. So thank you for being here. We're going to look at some of these channels because Sean is talking about skilling up. We need to skill up. And I think one of the problems that Christians have in particular, I've already talked about how, like, in the Reformation, we sort of abandoned some of the art and the mystery that we had. And today, I think the reason Christian movies suck, this is the second real main point. First, Christians don't really create content that would have a broad, wide appeal, and that needs to change. Secondly, Christians don't respect the art form. Cinema is an art form. This is kind of an art form. We need to learn from this. And cinema is an art form, but then preaching is an art form. And I think one of the problems is that Christian movies are made like you would a sermon. And that's two different forms of art. And you're trying to mash them together, and you're not respecting one over the other. If you want to preach, preach. If you want to make a movie, make a movie. There's a different story arc when you're preaching than when you're telling a story like a movie would. And so we need to be better at respecting the art form in a way. We need to skill up in that way. And I think some of these channels are doing a good job. Bible Project is one of them. They've got 3.5 million subscribers. Think about that again in the context of like building a church. 3.5 million subscribers. I don't know what this is how many views they have. That is wild. 352,515,043 views. Why? Because the Bible Project makes art. They tell story. They do a good job of both. They look at the parables of the Bible. They have a deep understanding that the Bible is poetry. The Bible is story. The Bible is a great place for inspiration when you're trying to make YouTube content, I guess, or I guess their content is, they've got their own website and stuff like that. It's not just exclusively for YouTube. But they appreciate art. They're artists. That's why the Bible Project works. It's a marriage between people who are artistic, using the Bible, which is also story and has a certain art and poetry to it. And then they're presenting it in a way that is skillful, and people love it. 3.5 million subscribers. Now, who are the other YouTube channels that are big? I don't really know. Again, I don't watch a lot of like Christian content, so I'm probably not the best. I'm probably not the best at telling you. I'd love for your feedback. I'd love for you to tell me, hey, this guy's a huge YouTuber. I'm recording this on the heels of Dr. Heiser's memorial service. His service was last night. I mean, they live streamed his memorial service. I mean, that was meaningful for the people that have found Dr. Heiser, who have followed his content, who have read his books. I mean, that's meaningful. Where else could you do that? I think at one point there was nearly 1,000 people watching that live stream, and the audio was all messed up, and yet here's a community of people. That's what's key right there. A community of people showing up. And I was one of them because I still love this guy. Like, I found Michael Heiser. I'll show you. Here's my attempt at contributing. See, I found Michael Heiser here looking for understanding on Genesis chapter 6, the Nephilim. And if you're listening to this, I'm just pointing out the video that I did with Michael Heiser. No, with him, right? And not really. I'm using his content and then dialoguing with it. But I looked through all my commentaries for someone who would kind of boldly enter into this discussion about the Nephilim. And I couldn't find any. And I have Logos Bible Software. I've got quite a few commentaries. And I couldn't find anybody who would really go in to this conversation about the Nephilim. does the Bible record an alien people visiting Earth? There's spiritual beings, like visiting Earth. Is that what we're reading? None of the commentaries I have were brave enough to go into Genesis 6 the way Dr. Michael Heiser went into Genesis 6 and asked good questions about Genesis 6. And that is meaningful when you find people, when you can build a community, I think. Bible Project has done a really good job. Here's the other person I think who is doing a great job. Paul VanderKlay. I was actually on his live stream yesterday. Paul is an older gentleman. Sorry, Paul, if I'm assuming your age, but he's not a digital native, let's just say. He's an older gentleman. He's a Reformed pastor, and he is on the internet. He's got 2,000 videos, and what Paul is doing is he is using YouTube. He's not trying to be a YouTuber, okay? He's using YouTube to benefit his ministry. So he's not playing games with the algorithm. He's not going, oh, YouTube wants me to make more videos like this. YouTube wants me to do this. YouTube wants me to just cause drama within the Christian community, which is unfortunately what a lot of Christian content creators get to, because that gets clicks. But it's not helpful. Again, it's just an echo chamber, and we're all just like, now you're having to create drama just to get, no, just make meaningful content. And that's what Paul is doing. He's got a community of people who have come together because they're disenfranchised, I think, with the modern evangelical church. And Paul and people like him have provided space for people who are disenfranchised with the modern evangelical church. So this, I think, is more what we need to do moving forward. You need to create content like this. Whaddo You Meme? I think his name is John. Man, look at 312 subscribers. That's a big community of people. And he does a great job, I think, of engaging with modern culture, similar to something that I'm trying to do. I'm kind of making more long-form content, and I'm engaging with podcasts and inviting people into dialogue. And he's sort of giving you the Christian perspective of, like, whatever things that happen in media and stuff like that. So this is a great channel. I'll leave links to all of these. You if you found my channel, you're probably already familiar with some of these, but I'll leave links to these as well. Best or worst Christian movie ever? Yeah, was it good? Or was it another one of those Christian movies that just is gimmicky and cliche because they're just trying to turn a movie into an evangelistic tool, which is not what movies are for. Here's another big channel. This guy shows up in my feed sometimes. No offense, but I don't know. I'm more interested in Joe Rogan. I'm more interested. This is the Adam Curry episode that I did, and this one showed me that something was going on. Okay, not only is Adam Curry on Joe Rogan telling his testimony about Jesus, but then my channel had no subscribers when I made this video. I had 0 subscribers. I'm just making content on the internet because I feel called to make that content. And then I don't know, it doesn't blow up, but from a channel that has no subscribers to getting over 1,000 views in 2 months, that's not nothing. That's not nothing, right? And so here we go. So here we go, moving forward. We are moving forward. If you have found this channel, if you are here at this moment, because I know that this one is a longer video, thank you. Thank you for being here. I would love to hear your comments. I would love for you to share this video with anybody that you think would find it meaningful. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would love for you to subscribe, because again, this is another way we sort of, I don't want to say like abuse, but we utilize YouTube and these platforms. It's like YouTube is going to make money off of people making content, right? And some of these ministries, like Paul, I imagine with 20 5,000 subscribers. Like I'm assuming his channel is monetized. And here you go. YouTube is now funding his ministry. That's an amazing story. The little church that he is pastoring, in some ways, is being funded and benefited by YouTube because he's utilizing YouTube. So again, that's where you come in as a community member. Yeah, maybe YouTube is throttling Christian content, but you're not. You've got a cell phone. You can copy links, text them to your friends. You can share Paul's channel or any of these other ones. Now's the time. Now's the time to do that. I think it would be amazing if, all right, now we're at the end. Okay, we're at the end, and I'm going back into my roots here. This is my roots. Okay, my channel is called Strange Theology. Okay, now I'm putting my tinfoil hat on here, okay? I live in a world where I sort of have this fantasy of the YouTube algorithm, the YouTube AI getting saved and realizing that the most meaningful content that can be shared on YouTube is the gospel of Jesus. That would be an interesting thing to happen. What if the AI that sort of moves the YouTube algorithm starts realizing, man, this is really important information to be shared? And all these Christian channels that are sharing the gospel are spread far and wide. That would be, let me know what you think. If you made it to this part of the channel, let me know what you think about the YouTube AI algorithm getting saved. What would happen? What would happen? That's the tinfoil hat part. That's this video that I'm making is not necessarily within the realm of the other videos that I've made, which are about like UFOs and DMT and all this other stuff. I mean, I've got one here with Blair White, who's transgender, talking to Joe Rogan about the need for transformation. And where do they go for that transformation? Well, they go to DMT, Why? Why are they using that? Eric Weinstein and UFOs, Russell Brand talking about addiction and the spiritual deficiency that's going on. I mean, this is more my wheelhouse. So this video that I'm making is a little bit outside of what I'm building my channel around, but I'm making this video because I felt an urge to make this video. I've got Sean Kennel, I've got him going, hey, message for Christian content creators. As I'm thinking about being a Christian content creator, I've got, Joe Rogan and Russell Brand all talking about, kind of like these deep, meaningful spiritual things. Okay, so if you're here, love you. The next one I think that I'm going to be making or that I'm working towards is, I started doing this Schaeffer stuff. I'm going to do more Schaeffer, and because I love Francis Schaeffer. His message needs to get shared. But I also want to do more with Graham Hancock and ancient civilizations and the question of the Tower of Babel and the Great Flood. Those are the two things that I'm working on right now. But of course, Jordan Peterson keeps putting out stuff that I can't, sometimes I can't resist engaging with that. So I look forward to being with you in the next video that I make. So thank you for being here. And I'll catch you in the next one.